Hey YouTube. Well, it's Wednesday and it was raining a couple minutes ago. It's supposed to rain all day today. I have a log on the sawmill there. You can see I cut a couple longer ones and stuff the other day. It's just been miserable weather. This past Friday it snowed, so it's kind of a nuisance. Anyway, I always get questions about when you're setting the log up to cut and stuff like that. And the way I look at logs is like this. I look at the circles, the two circles. This is a 14-inch circle here, diameter of log, and down at this end it's a 12-inch diameter. So you figure 14 minus 12 gives you 2. So what I do is I usually raise the small end up 1 inch, then half of whatever that distance is. Now you can see that over in here, and you can actually tell by the log, it's got a little bit of a bow in it. So depending upon how much of a bow it has, sometimes you may have to raise it a little more or lower it a little more to get the most amount of wood out of it. Now the name of the game here is to try to get the most amount of wood. That's the issue, the most amount of good wood, not just scrap. So what I have there ought to work out pretty good. So if I come down, like say on this end here, 2 inches roughly, because I should be able to get an 8 inches of wood out of this, and that'll give me 2x4s. I should be about the same 2 inches down up at this end. Okay. Now it might be a little bit more because, like I say, this is 14 inches and that's 12, and I only came up 1 inch down there. You never really want to bring it up the full 2 inches to start on the top. Not that you can't do it, you can, and depending on the log it'll work fine. But sometimes when you do that, if you raise the log up, like say that's 12, this is 14, if you raise it up 2 inches, you'll be giving yourself a real big bad cut out of this bigger end, and you really don't want that. You want to try and save as much wood as you can. Now a couple weeks ago when I cut, there was a pretty bent log, and when I cut it I went the full distance because I knew I wasn't going to get much out of the log. So as it is, I'll just show you here. You see how like this is a 16 footer. At that end it kind of sweeps to the left, and then this one here, this is another 16 footer, and if you look at this one, it sweeps to the right up there. Now when you cut them in half, if I cut them down to 18 or 8 foot, it won't be near as bad of a bend in 8 foot rather than 16 foot, so that'll make it a little bit easier for me to cut. So it's not hard to cut logs on the sawmill. I mean, once you get the sawmill going, it is pretty easy, but you want to get as much wood as you can. Something small like this one, I'll probably get a 4x4 out of that if I'm lucky. But anyway, yeah, so I've been cutting 2x4s. These are 12 footers here, this log, and I could use some 12 foot 2x4s. So I'm going to work on cutting these as long as it doesn't rain here. So let me get set up and then I'll get started cutting. So then the next step that I follow is, you see the small end is 12 inches, so I can get an 8.5 inch cant out of that. What that'll give me is 2 4x4s plus a little bit of slack for cutting. So you want to try and cut as carefully as you can, or else you're going to miss the 8 inches, if you go too low or whatever. So then what I do is I normally, just hang on a second here, I normally take a tape measure then, and I'll just measure across where 8 inches is. And you can see 8 inches is roughly 2 inches down from the top. So it's a little more than 2 inches. So what I'll do then is I'll cut 2 inches below here. I'll come down 2 inches, and that's where I'll make my first cut. And then the rest of that should be good to get me the 8 inches that I'm after. So I'll cut this up that's how I do it. If you wanted to, there's no reason why you can't take a keel or something, marker, and mark the log if you want to figure out where to cut it. But for me, I don't want to do that because I don't want to get used to looking at lines. I want to look at the log and know what I can get out of it just by looking at it. And that's pretty much what I've been able to do. Take some practice to do that, but I've been cutting for quite a while, different things. So anyway, that's what I'm going to start with. So I got to warm the saw up and then we'll get cutting. So what I do is, instead of marking anything, what I do is I put the blade, you can see the blade's right on top of the log there, and I'll put that on there and then I'll go down 2 inches. Okay? And that's 2 inches right there. And that's where I'll start to cut. So you don't have to be doing a lot of measuring. When I'm cutting, making these videos, I try to take my time so everybody can see what I'm doing. But if I was cutting to make money, I'm not going to be fooling around. I'm going to cut as fast as I can to get as much of the wood cut as I can. But that's not what I'm doing today. So anyway, let me just start to cut this and we'll see what we got here. Down to about 2¼ inches. At the other end, I'm down about 3 inches. That's because I raised it up 1 inch. So up at this end, you can see I've got just about 8 inches, so that gives me a little bit of play. I can go down there probably another 1/2 inch, but I'm not going to do that right now. I want to turn it and get most of the cuts made so I can try and have that 8 inches there. Because remember, the log, it has a bow in it, so it's a little bent down in this area. So you don't want to go cutting all your excess wood off and then ending up with nothing left to work with in case you're a little shy. Now you don't have to turn this on a 90, you know, exactly. I could turn this 180 and still cut, but I'm okay with what I have here, so I'm going to just keep going with this. Now, if I put the blade down to where the cut ended on this side, like right about there, I can see if I'm going to have 8 inches left here. And it's not exactly 8 inches, it's a little shy. You know, that's in the opposite direction. So I'm going to come up just a little bit, and I'll cut there and see how that looks. See, when you have any kind of bend in the log at all, and you're close, like 12 inches gives you 8½ inch cant, you can lose that 8½ inch cant real quick. It can go down to 7 inches, 6 inches, depending on how bent the log is. don't like shutting it on and off, even to make a video, but the thing is I want to talk a little bit about what's going on here. So I got to take that top piece off of here and then we'll do some more. Now when I measure across the top right here at this end, I'm right at about 8 1/4 inches. Down at the other end I have a little more than 8 inches. But that's good. I should still be able to get 2x4s out of this thing. I just have to watch how I cut. I don't want to take too much. So I got to roll that now and make the other 2 cuts. Okay, so on this side where my tip of my finger is, I've got 8 1/2 inches from the very bottom up to where the cut starts, right here. So I'm going to just cut straight across there and see what I end up with. I can go to 8 1/8 inches and still get 2x4s out of this, but I don't like getting that close right away because there's a little bark on the bottom, some wane, that I could get off if possible. So we'll just see what happens here. Just trying to take it through this slowly. You can see down here there's some wane on here. Now if I go down another 1/2 inch, I'll probably get rid of most of that. Enough of it that I won't worry about it being on the lumber. But I'm going to cut the other side off for a square to get the square cant, and then we'll see what we have there exactly. Starting to rain pretty good again. Okay, I've got 8 1/2 there and probably 8 that way. So if I cut 8 1/4, that should give me a better idea of where I'm going to take those 2x4s out of. Now the bottom of this log is where the wane is. So as long as I can cut the top and get my boards out of there, I should be okay. I still have some wane on the left side of that. You'll see it when I take that piece of bark off of there. The problem with this is that it had a pretty good bow in it, and you know, I'm trying to get 8 inches out of it, and it was 12 inches at this end exactly, so it didn't allow for much room for error. Okay, 8.5 that way. 8 3/8 up. So I'm going to turn this one turn that direction and cut a 1/2 inch off of that. And that'll get, or 3/8 of an inch off of that. And that'll give me 8 1/8 inches, which is just right to get 2x4s out of. And I'll be able to get most of this wane off of here. On this side, I'll have to turn it back again so that the bottom, where this is as clean a wood as I can get. top, and that'll give me two 4-inch boards that I can cut into 2x4s. My battery's getting low, so I'll shut it off for this little. Alright, that's the first two 2x4s. I'll take them off of there. Four more now. Okay, so that's 8 2x4s. Now the only thing I want to show you here is, I don't know if you can see it very good there, but the bottom 2x4 is a little bit heavier than the other 3 were, or the other 6. So I'm going to take the 2 top ones off, and then I'll just slice the top off, or actually the bottom off, because that's where the wane is, and give myself a nice 2x4 there. And they'll all be the same 2x4 inch size, 12 footers. Let me just tell you, when you're cutting this thin of a piece off, that's probably a 1/16 there because of the 1/8 inch. that you're using for the kerf, the saw kerf. You want to go slow, and you want to make sure that the boards are down on the bunk, all the way down, because if they're not down on the bunk, chances of you getting a nice flat board are going to be a little off, because you're going to be cutting according to the warp in the board. Now these boards are not warped, they're nice and straight. So far I feel pretty lucky with these hemlock. Normally hemlock gives you grief, but these are coming out real nice. So have a good one, guys. If there's any questions, just ask them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them for you. Man, this weather's got to change. It's supposed to be nice tomorrow, but I couldn't really count on that. So I wanted to get the video done today. Have a good one. The one thing I want to add to this video, guys, in order to get a really nice flat cut like that, you've got to have a blade that hasn't hit anything, that's nice and flat as far as how the teeth set are. You know, you can set them whatever you want, but just so they're all the same. And the blade has to be, like I say, sharp. But you can see how nice that cut that 1/16 of an inch, 12 foot long off of there. You can't beat that. I wouldn't expect to be able to cut any less than that with the saw, so it did a nice job there. So far, after this is my 4th year with this Woodmizer, I've been very happy with it. I really don't think that you know, you could have bought any kind of a more expensive saw that would have done any better, really. Now, you know, maybe the hydraulics might be easier or whatever. I'm not into that. I don't really care about that. But yeah, they came out pretty nice. So we've got 6 there and 2 more, so that's 8 12-foot 2x4s. So it's looking good. I'm very happy with this. Okay.